Let's talk to Leo. Leo in Wisconsin, it looks like. How you doing?
Yeah.
I understand
Hey,
you've
I'm
moved.
doing good. This is my first time. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I understand you've moved to a more conservative area for work, and you're dealing with some ethical challenges working for some new people.
Yeah. So I graduated in December of 2019 with a journalism degree, and I'm from a small city in Wisconsin, and that's where I went to college. And it was the campus was more liberal than here. I just moved to a TV station, a broadcast news station that's like a small affiliate. The goal is to branch out to larger cities like Austin eventually, but it's sort of like a breeding ground. So it's like a really small city in the middle of Wisconsin, and it's a lot more conservative than any place I've ever lived. And I'm just having a hard time finding my kind of people. I did look online to see if there was like an atheist community, and there is one like Central Wisconsin Atheist or something like that, but it's pretty much inactive. So I guess I'm just calling to ask for some advice on how to find my kind of people and also working with people who are mostly theists, because some of the quirks of living and working at a small affiliate is I find this is the first time I've experienced people who are considered journalists who are like outspoken like Christians, and that's like an odd concept to me. It's almost like an oxymoron, because as a journalist you're taught to question everything. If your mother tells you you love her, find the evidence.
Sure. Right. You're gonna need more sources than just
yeah. And not only that, but like our chief meteorologist doesn't believe in climate change, so that tells you like what kind of station it is, what kind of city I'm living in.
Yeah, heart goes out to you. Are you in central Wisconsin ish?
Yeah, like smack dab in the middle, a little bit north.
Well, I know that Milwaukee has a Milwaukee atheist group, but I think that's probably a couple of hours away. Do you have a car?
Yeah. I do.
Yeah,
it's like two and a half hours away, I think.
That's a tough one. Well, I'll say this is not a good thing, but the quarantine and the coronavirus has caused groups like the ACA, like I'm sure the Milwaukee Atheist Group, and I'd like to get the name of that. Somebody could pop that up, but there's probably something in Madison as well, to meet virtually. A lot of us have been meeting virtually in online groups, Zoom meetings, playing games online, and places like that. They may have moved into a web presence in some way. And so I would explore that, but once that's over, I think people are going to be feverish to get together. That's maybe a bad choice of words, but they're going to be very eager to get together. There are people who believe or don't believe like you in your community. You just haven't identified them yet, and maybe they don't. If it's a very small town, they probably don't make a big note of it. But joining an online community could be a start. Some place to start there. Also, I worked in a lot of office environments over the decades that I've been working in office environments, and I think most of the people that I worked with were believers. There's still a lot of things you have in common with them. You don't have to talk about transubstantiation.
I'm aware of that, and I've worked I've worked at places where there was a lot of theists, and I had no problem, because I get along with the people that I work with pretty well. I think the difference this time around is that I work for a news company, so along with being theists, a lot of people around here are kind of very ignorant about a lot of things. Like one of our anchors used the term rain dance in like a goofy way to talk about ooh, let's have a rain dance to have more weather, and they just don't understand like Black Lives Matter issues and all that stuff like that. So I'm approaching those kind of stories from a different angle than most of the people, and sometimes I get some pushback. So I think that's the difference with this job.
It's interesting. I keep thinking about something with this whole call and the situation you're in, which is that for religious people, typically if you can move anywhere in the United States, and for example, I spent the early first 22 years of my life as a fundamentalist Christian, and I could move anywhere in the United States and find a church where I could just plug right into a community. We don't have that as skeptics.
Definitely one of the benefits.
Sure, the community aspect is huge. I wonder to what extent that keeps people invested in their religious beliefs. But I have found personally
is a major factor.
I mean, I'm sure results may vary, depending on who you're talking to. But the online communities like what the ACA has created, if you get plugged into the Facebook groups that we have, I mean, you will find a number of people who can empathize with exactly what you're going through. I have had that happen over the last couple of years, to where some of my very closest friends, live in places like, Texas and Sweden even. I mean, there's people that I haven't met yet who are very close to me. And it's just one of the things where we're all kind of doing what we can to create as much of a community, not just here in the United States, but internationally, of skeptics and of atheists, because it's not like we can go plug into a church wherever we go.
Yeah. Check out the Discord. We talk about the Discord a lot on these shows, but it's true. I mean, there's stuff happening every day, all day. Someone's in there having a conversation about, it's not even about just atheism, because that would be kind of tiresome, right? It's everything under the sun. I know that Kelly talks sometimes about rocks, out there in Discord. He knows a lot about that stuff. He runs a rock shop. We're talking about movies. We're talking about TV shows. We're talking about art, talking about games, playing games sometimes together, board games, virtual board games, video games, joining together. There's lots of things you can do virtually. Yeah, it's not in person. There's a real value to being in person, but all of us are a little bit isolated now. We're starting to come out of it, but we're not there yet. Yeah. So plug in now while everyone is really invested in online community. And who knows, there's probably somebody the next town over who's pretty cool you can meet up with, hiking or whatever it is outside that's safe for you to do so at a distance until all this unfortunateness is over. But you're not alone. You have
not by a long shot.
Yeah. So please reach out there and email us if you have any troubles with that. But yeah, Discord's probably a good place to go for that.
Okay. Do you mind if I ask you one more question about like working environment with theists? Because one of the anchors I work with, she is very outspoken about her Christianity, and she talks about going to Bible class every week and stuff. And I hang out with her sometimes after work. We get along. We have a nice working relationship. And she's expressed to me that she's fine talking about her faith and discussing it. But the few times that I've attempted talking to her about it, and I've been trying to do it as gently as possible, I sense a lot of pushback and really entry-level bad arguments. Like, well, you have to have faith in, everyone has faith in something, you believed it at one point, that kind of thing. So I'm curious if, and I want to maintain the working relationship. I don't want to spoil it because I'm going to be here for a few years. So I'm curious if you want to maintain a good working relationship with somebody. I feel like, and she says she's open to discussing it, but I feel like if I do, it's going to sour it, but I'm really not sure. And I'm beginning right now to really get interested in street epistemology. I'm reading, what's that book? Manual Theism. I think it's actually a really good tool for journalists. So I'm just curious what you think about that.
I would refer you to look at the work that Anthony Magnabosco has been doing. I don't know of anybody in the game who is better at having difficult conversations with people about what they believe and doing it in a way where there's no souring of any relationship, where people want to continue the conversations with him. So yeah, street epistemology is great. Before you said that, that's exactly where I was going to go with answering your question. I think that learning how to ask questions that are designed to get the person to think critically is probably the best thing you could hope to do in the situation that you're in. And if that person reaches a point of going, you're asking me to think about stuff that I don't want to think about, that's your signal to go, okay, hey, no harm, no foul here. We can still be colleagues and have a friendship. But to the extent that you want to explore this and hopefully, get them to think a little bit, I think you're on the right track with street epistemology.
Yeah. And I talk about situational awareness. If you have a good relationship with this person, your primary goal should be to continue this good relationship, because if you take a wrong turn, you might lose it. And it's hard to get that back. So make sure that although the person says they want to have conversations about this, that they actually do. You're reading body language. You're prepared to stop and switch gears and talk about something else. Once you build a rapport, once you care about each other, once there's an investment in each other as people and as friends, then you get a lot more leeway. I've mentioned this a bunch of times, and I really apologize for the viewers who are tired of hearing it, but I got buddies who are pretty religious, and we have occasional conversations about this. And I tell them, I had one this week. I don't want to ever make this get in the way, but you want to talk about it, let's talk about it, because I think it's interesting. And I think we have to figure out how to have difficult conversations with people that disagree with us and still be friends, or at least they still respect each other. Because if we can't figure out how to talk with each other, we're just going to create enemies all down the line, and we'll continue to separate as a society.
Yeah.
So, and this is a microcosm of that, isn't it? But I think if you're just cautious and careful and respectful, and the other person's enthusiastically engaging, you're probably pretty safe.
Yeah. And I'll add one more thing, if you don't mind, is that I think intention is key. I think that there's a huge difference. If someone tells you, I believe that I can communicate with the creator of the universe, and you're like, well, that's fucking dumb, and you make fun of them, or you start dropping, like, well, you've just committed a blah, blah, blah fallacy, and you're just trying to dunk on that person and communicate to them that you have figured something out that they haven't, or that you're smarter than them. I mean, there's a whole bunch of different ways to approach these conversations. And I think people pick up on what your intention is. If you sincerely are just going, listen, I want to believe true things, I don't want to believe false things. If we're on the same page there, let's explore these beliefs and ask a bunch of fun questions and get to the bottom of this stuff. Generally, I find that people don't find that objectionable. People will engage with you. But the instant that you start making it about something else, the instant that ego enters the equation, that's where things go off the rails in a hurry, in my experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed. Did that help? Did that help?
And I fear that yeah, it does. I fear that leaving the ego out is going to be tough for me, because I tend to get triggered about certain phrases, which is why I'm learning about street epistemology, to really pump the brakes on that.
I mean, you can, depending on what your relationship is with this person, you can be open about that.
Yeah.
I mean, there are certain topics where I tend to get really, really passionate very, very quickly. Like if someone tries to talk to me about like spanking kids, or what the Bible, for example, has to say about how parents should, not spare the rod, at the risk of spoiling their kids. That is a thing that's very near and dear to me, and I tend to get very passionate about that. And I'll tell somebody right out of the gate, listen, I had experiences as a child that are directly related to what we're talking about here. So it's a little bit more to me than just this abstract thing to be discussing. And when I lay all that on the table, it makes the expectations for the other person as to what that conversation is about to be. It makes it clear. So if they want to keep going with it, they can. If not, they can disengage, and it's fine. But that open communication, I think, again, is really, really key, because again, the intentions are really, really important when it comes to how useful you can expect a conversation to be.
Yeah, Leo, can I add one more thing? And I think we're going to have to let you go. And I've said this before, that when you get involved in this conversation with your coworker / friend, hopefully your friend who happens to be a coworker, right? That you're not going in there to deconvert, right? You're not going in there with the intention to change that person. You're going in there to understand and to have yourself and your views be understood. And that as a result, there may be deconversion. There may be just greater compassion and an openness. Their faith might change, but not disappear. And you've got to be ready for that. There's no end game in this. It's a journey, not the goal. Okay. So that's a little harder to mess up. And I think, easier to keep your cool because you're just exploring a space with somebody and seeing where that goes.
Yeah.
So, Leo, thank you for calling. I really, what's that?
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, I appreciate all the help. I have my best friend lives in Austin, and once my contract is up here, fingers crossed, I find a job over there, and I could spend my free time helping out over at the ACA. That would mean the world to me.
That'd be awesome.
That would be fantastic.
And I do want to leave just with I do want to leave just with a comment. I was listening to an episode from a couple of weeks ago, and somebody was talking about something that's timeless, and I just wanted to end with saying that I do know about something that you can consider timeless, and that is The Wizard of Oz. So keep that in mind.
All right. Noted.
Yeah, that's a classic. That's a classic. It's timeless. Thanks a lot, Leo. You take care. Call back. Let us know how it goes with your coworker and friend.
All right.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Great.
Sweet. Get plugged into the Facebook groups there, Leo. We'll keep this conversation going.
All right.
But
Kenneth,
for now.
Yeah,
John.
you know, I might have stepped on some toes in office environments in the past. I had a buddy who was a Jehovah's Witness, and in my office, and I love the guy. We would talk about 70s soul music and 80s stuff and movies, and he was an older fella, and we had a lot in common because I liked some stuff that's been around for a while, and then we talked a little bit about the Jehovah's Witness organization, the Bible, a little bit, and you got to tread really carefully because that was his life's blood. This is something that's running down the spine of this guy.
Sure.
And the way I approached it was, well, so-and-so, I mean, I get that. I don't know. I always had questions about this. I never really understood this. Can you explain how this works? Well, sure. Let me, Johnny, let me show you this website as we're using, work computers to talk about religion, which would have gotten us in HR trouble, but it didn't. It ended up being fine. And he gave me a tract when he left and a copy of his version of the Bible. And I really appreciated where it was coming from, even though I am no closer to becoming a Jehovah's Witness as a result of those conversations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It took me a long time sort of an embarrassingly long time to figure out that meeting someone's statements of belief with "I'm not convinced" opens the door to better conversations than "that's ridiculous." You know what I mean? So I go through the same stuff with coworkers. I work with a lot of folks who I've been invited to church, and people, they've got good intentions. I hope, I assume. Yeah, when the conversation becomes, I'm not so sure about that. Why are you so sure about that? Then things get fun.